Okay, Jimmy, who is this? The world's #1 hero? Jimmy, that is a McDonald's worker. How many times do we have to go over this? How many? Whatever. Hopefully you can at least tell me who this is. One of the strongest characters in Dragon Ball? No, that is a base Kaba victim. I don't know why I try anymore. You have one more chance before I kick you out of this class. Who is... You're really mature for your age. Who said that? Do you have Discord? HoobeZa! You're not even allowed in the school zone. Get the hell out of my classroom, you freak. Please add me on Roblox. Agenda has become a driving force in the anime community. Nowadays, everyone's a fraud or a bum or a jobber no matter what they do. You lose a fight, you're a fraud. You win a fight, you're still a fraud. You cry after your mom wakes up from a coma? Wrap it up, buddy, you're a fraud. But today we're going to be examining 3 characters, Deku, Gogeta, and Meliodas, that the internet has clowned the hardest and grading whether they truly deserve the slander. We have a grading scale going from A+ for no fraudulence here, all the way to F for fraud. Got it? Now with that being said, let's start with Deku. Before Megami fans, there were Deku fans. From like 2016 to 2021, these niggas were in a Tsukuyomi, bro. If you told anyone that you were a Deku fan, it was genuinely over for you. People basically treated his existence as a crime. Deku literally couldn't do anything without getting slandered. People slandered his hero name, his costume, his powers. I mean, this dude got blown up for crying of all things. Something literally every shonen MC does. It was bad, man. It also wasn't helped by the fact that the MHA fandom is...
Oh, hell no, man.
Unique, to put it kindly. Combine all that together and Deku fans were fighting for their lives. But then, luckily for Deku, the Dark Hero arc came out. All of a sudden, everyone who was on his ass turned into Deku Glazers. Deku had aura now, his costume was cool, he didn't really cry anymore. Did his fundamental character change? Not really. But all of a sudden, he finally got the respect he deserved. That was, of course, until his series ended. Because unfortunately for him, young Midoriya went from being the strongest in his verse to losing all his powers. But that's fine, right? After all, he saved Japan, he's set for life, he probably never needs to work again. I mean, who wouldn't want to support the savior of humanity?
Whisper, 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 whisper.
He has to work as a teacher now? Well, at least he's still got his dozens of pro hero friends to fall back on, right?
Whisper, 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 whisper.
None of these people have talked to him in 8 years. Well, at least he got the girl in the end. Surely the author at least gave him that.
Whisper, 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 whisper.
They never confirmed he bagged Uraraka. Damn. All of a sudden, it was like the past few years hadn't even happened. Deku fans were back to square one. People were joking that he was a McDonald's worker now. They were talking about Uraraka going crazy in these streets. I remember people were talking about his quirk being all for nothing instead of one for all. The worst part is that like half of these issues got resolved in the epilogue, but that didn't come out until 4 months later, and by then, it was too late. Once again, Deku was getting belt to ass. It got so bad that when he beat Miles Morales in a death battle, he started getting slandered for winning. The agenda became that he was a bully that needed to beat street tier heroes to stay relevant. People had him chasing after Hawkeye, Black Widow, Team Umizoomi. I actually thought it was over for him. But, as agendas tend to do, something mutated. All of a sudden, Deku wasn't a bully anymore. The narrative became that he was actually the god of the streets. If you ever in your life had touched a street, you were a Deku victim. Goku vs. Deku? Goku's been on a street before. Deku upscale. Superman vs. Deku. Here's Big Blue on the road. Deku upscale. Multiversal god Dr. Manhattan? What's that beneath his feet? Deku upscale. Finally, for the first time in years, Deku had made it from the bottom. No longer was he a victim. No longer would he be slandered. No longer would MHA fans be outcasts. Okay, maybe forget that last one. In the end though, while Deku did lose his powers and his friends stopped talking to him, he did manage to be the world's greatest hero, turn his agenda around after his series finished, and overcome probably the most slander of any character besides Potential Man himself. His final grade is going to be a B. But our next character had the opposite trajectory of Deku. He went from being on top of the world to falling into disgrace. Ladies and non-ladies, let's talk about Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. But before we do that, if you've enjoyed the video so far, make sure to like, subscribe, and join the Discord. Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta was considered the strongest character in Dragon Ball for like 20 years. Any form of media he appeared in, he was glazed to high heaven. And for good reason. He was the strongest character, one of the strongest anime for literal decades. Anytime his name came up back in the day, you better put some respect on it. I was ready to die behind that shit. GT might not have been canon, but to me and a lot of other people growing up during his era, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta might as well be the Pope, the Buddha, and Mother Teresa rolled into one. And in the games, forget about it. I don't think there's a DBZ game to this day where Gogeta isn't top 1. So how did he fall so far from grace? How did he go from outstanding to... Well, it starts with Battle of Gods, where we get introduced to Beerus and Super Saiyan God. This was some of the first canon Dragon Ball content we got in years, and this Beerus guy was getting a lot of hype. But to me, Gogeta was still the king. After all, they didn't do anything in that movie on the level of the GOAT. But then came Dragon Ball Super. In the first few episodes of Super, they redid the fight between Goku and Beerus. These two were hitting each other so hard they almost destroyed the universe by accident. And that was enough for most people, including me, to finally take Gogeta off the throne. But as disappointed as I was, it made sense. After all, who better to surpass Gogeta than two literal gods? Well, the answer turned out to be... literally everyone. You see, something else happened during that fight. Goku absorbed the power of his god form into base, which meant logically any character from now on who was stronger than base Goku was probably stronger than Gogeta. Now for guys like Golden Frieza, Vegeta, Whis, that was all cool, but it got out of control pretty quickly. Guys like Android 17, Trunks, heck even Master Roshi were now all god level. Pretty soon you had randoms you'd never even heard of being strong enough to one-shot Buhan. And one of the funniest examples of that was Kaba. This dude started off as a scrawny, skinny bum who couldn't even go Super Saiyan. But since he was technically as strong as base Vegeta, there was an argument he was stronger than Gogeta 4. But that went under the radar for a while until someone tweeted that base Kaba would body Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. Pretty soon, everyone and their mama was on Gogeta's head top. People had Kaba flying through Kamehamehas, had Gogeta begging Kaba to let him win. They started treating Kaba like a literal horror villain. And what made it worse is how upset GT fans got. Which I actually get, considering the world was calling their GOAT a pan victim. But if there's one thing you never want to do when your character gets slandered, it's let people know it affected you. It's like putting blood in the water for these folks. When you're at the point when you're making 15-minute videos to try and convince people that the former strongest character of all time could beat base, not even Super Saiyan 2, base Kaba, it might be time to wrap it up. Gogeta had an insane run of dominance for years on end, and to this day is one of the coolest characters ever, but he had one of the biggest falls from grace ever, technically has never won a fight, and dropped like 40 spots on the strongest character list. It hurts me to do this, but I'm going to give him a C. He isn't a fraud, but he's definitely on the decline. But our next character isn't on the decline at all. After all, you can't really sink from rock bottom. It is my great displeasure to present Meliodas. Last and certainly least, we have Meliodas. But before we get into him, quick warning, this section is going to talk about some sensitive topics. So if you aren't comfortable hearing about this guy or this guy, you won't like what I have to say about this guy. When I was a kid, I actually really liked 7 Deadly Sins. I would watch it on Netflix whenever I could until it started falling off a cliff and I dropped it. But when I went back to try and rewatch the series, I was disgusted. Whoever wrote 7 Deadly Sins needs their hard drive checked immediately. I don't know how you managed to write a series called 7 Deadly Sins when the only sin anyone falls into is exactly lust. Basically, every character in that series was on the island. Gother had a mind-controlled wife. King literally raised his girlfriend from a toddler. And Ban... just look. I ain't even gotta say nothing. Well, at least my glorious goat Escanor, the only good part of this show, is safe. Never mind, turns out the very adult woman who he was in love with was retconned to secretly be a child after I dropped the show. But none of these guys come even close to the sheer depravity of Meliodas. There's stuff this dude does in episode 1 that could get this video demonetized. The most charitable thing he does is act like your typical anime perv. I mean, the first thing we see him do is feel on a girl who's old enough to drive, but not old enough to vote. And it never really gets better from there. And that type of generic weirdo stuff never stops. In fact, it gets worse. Episode after episode, he just gets creepier and creepier. But it all culminates in probably the most infamous scene in Seven Deadly Sins history. You see, Meliodas and Elizabeth were in love in a previous life. But every time Elizabeth remembers Meliodas, she dies and is reincarnated with none of her memories. This has happened dozens of times throughout history, but on this reincarnation, she's taken by Meliodas right after she's born. And when someone approaches him while he's carrying baby Elizabeth, he goes crazy and gives possibly the worst quote in all of fiction. "Keep your hands off my woman." Mind you, this dude is 3,000 years old when he does this. And the worst part is, I've seen people try to defend this. I don't want to hear not one excuse. Your Honor, she loved me in a previous life. Well, in this life, she's a baby, my nigga. Jail forever. Suffice it to say, this was the straw that broke the camel's back for most people, and the origin for dozens upon dozens of pages of Meliodas slander. Who even comes up with this stuff? Meliodas has got to go, man. In the end, I don't think I can come up with a single positive thing about Meliodas besides the fact that he died, and the author had to ruin that too. He's going to get our first failing grade for the day. So in the end, Deku ended up passing with a B grade, Gogeta also passed with a slightly lower C, and Meliodas gets our first failing grade of the day with an F double minus, tying him with Megami for the biggest fraud in the class. May the Lord forever burn his soul. Well, that's it for today's video. As always, I want to encourage you to like, share, and subscribe, and pretty please check out my Patreon where I post these videos early. You can get exclusive content not on YouTube. I also want to give a huge shout out to Mo Schmo for the thumbnail idea. Go check out his channel, link in the description below. I love all you beautiful people, and I'll see you next Thursday.